All right, let's go live to our Washington bureau chief, who, of course, today is in Lower Manhattan. Joy, what a spectacle. Walk us through what you're seeing.
Well, you just missed the Trump truck that we've often seen go by. A lot of hooting and hollering going on. Many Trump supporters here at the request of the former president and, of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is a close ally of Donald Trump. There were these dueling protests going on. I can still hear them, but we had to get pushed back a little bit by the security police, who are expecting Donald Trump at any minute now to surrender in the courthouse behind me. There have been dueling protests, a bit of a shouting match back and forth. People calling themselves the resistance say that they outnumber Trump supporters. Trump supporters, of course, echoing what he's been saying is that this is all political persecution led by the Democrats. And this is, well, we've heard that word over and over again, a witch hunt against him.
Yeah, we're going to show where you are, Joy, because we have some wide shots of the courthouse and stuff. This is massive courthouse in Lower Manhattan you're familiar with. He's going to be on the 15th floor. It's just huge. And we're expecting Donald Trump to arrive by a side or a back entrance. Now, as best as we can tell, he hasn't actually left Trump Tower yet. So the timeline now is lagging a little bit, although it doesn't take all that long. He'll be under an escort to get from Trump Tower down to where you are. But still, again, it's important to, as you've been pointing out, when it comes to Donald Trump, things are always quite unpredictable in terms of how they unfold.
Always, and things are in flux, but you can just feel the anticipation. There are so many people on the streets, so many police officers moving everybody along, and everyone kind of waiting on tenterhooks for his arrival. There are rumors going around he may address the press at the courtroom steps, but no one will hear him. Everybody's been pushed back so far. You mentioned that he's going to be on the 15th floor. The last we heard, he was going to take a side entrance, but who knows? Maybe he'll enter the front and give us one of those, standard Trump thumbs up. But when he gets up there, he's supposed to be treated like any criminal defendant. That process is supposed to take hours. But here's the thing. He's going to get VIP treatment. You mentioned the Secret Service. They will be with him for the rest of his life. He will be fingerprinted. And we're now hearing that there may not be a photograph, because that would cause security concerns, because he may have to be taken to another building in order to do that mugshot. So that's probably why, there's been a bit of delay, because this process won't take as long as expected. But lots of anticipation, a spectacle like I have never seen before.
And I'm curious, Joy, set it up for us. I mean, in terms of what's at stake here. We're just looking here, some live pictures here of his motorcade. And we're hearing now that Trump is now inside of this vehicle. These are aerials, of course, a chopper overhead. So this is outside of Trump Tower, Joy, and we're hearing that he's about to leave and head in your direction, which could take 15 or 20 minutes, depending on New York City traffic here. What's at stake here for Donald Trump in the first of what could be 4 different criminal cases against him? We'll see. But in terms of his own political future, but even his own future, just, to be charged criminally like this, what do you think?
Any other person, any other political candidate, I would think this would be very hurtful. But there's nothing in the Constitution that says, you can't run to be president if you've been indicted or even charged with a crime. This particular crime, and we don't know the charges yet. This is the frustrating part. We don't know what the evidence is. We do know it's about these hush money payments to an adult film star, and whether or not business documents were falsified and how serious that was. Was it a campaign finance violation? But of all the investigations he faces, this is the less serious. I mean, you've talked about the January 6th insurrection where people died, the election interference investigation in Georgia, and that infamous phone call where Donald Trump Trump is heard pressuring an official to change the vote count. And of course, the classified documents that were found at Mar-a-Lago. Anybody else facing all of these, it would be like game over. But Donald Trump is using this to his political advantage. Marjorie Taylor Greene just, a little while ago said she likens him to Nelson Mandela being politically persecuted. She even said he's like Jesus being persecuted. At this moment, though, Donald Trump has been able to use it to his advantage. He has raised a lot of money, $8 million, I believe, since his indictment. And so far, it's working for him. But let's remember, there is a general election, and it's not just Republicans who are going to be voting, independents. And once all of this information comes out, these investigations, we don't know how this will tar him.
Yeah, and Joy, we just want to tell our viewers what they're seeing here on the screen. So this is Donald Trump's motorcade. The news chopper is overhead. It's heading toward you, Joy, down in Lower Manhattan to that criminal court there. Should take, well, it looks like traffic is quite clear, so they could get there pretty quickly in terms of Donald Trump actually arriving. And then we're going to see the process involved here, correct? Can you walk us through what we're expecting? So he arrives. We're not sure exactly how he will enter the building, but then there's a number of things that have to be done, including, as you're pointing out, the fingerprinting. He'll no doubt be talking to some of his lawyers in those final minutes before he actually walks into a courtroom on the 15th floor of that building you're outside of and faces the judge. And then, only then, Joy, do we actually hear what the actual charges are in this case, correct?
Yeah, Alvin Bragg, the district attorney who led the investigation, he will hold a press conference and talk about these charges. But yeah, I mean, all we know is there could be as many as 24 or 34 felony charges against Donald Trump. I could just imagine some of those amazing pictures. It almost reminds me of other police chases that have happened with celebrities in the past. It will be interesting, you know, Donald Trump, it's all very fluid when it comes to him. The last we were told, he will enter the courtroom, he will go to the 15th floor, and he will be booked just like any other criminal defendant. The process that you've mentioned, the fingerprinting, we know now that there may not be a photograph. That could be over pretty quickly. Normally that process would take about an hour. And then, of course, he faces the judge at around 2:15. And we are told by his lawyers that he will say in his own voice, he will say that he is not guilty. Then other things have to happen. The judge will decide bail conditions. Do they release Donald Trump on his own recognizance? Very likely, everybody knows who the former president is. But I'm also curious to see what the judge does about a gag order, because for the last little while, Donald Trump has been attacking this judge, says that the judge hates him, that he's biased, and he's been attacking Alvin Bragg, the district attorney, as well, saying that he should be indicted. So if the judge slaps a gag order on him, I'm not sure what Donald Trump will do, since he plans to address his 700 or so supporters in Florida tonight.
Yeah, and also just the timeline on how this is all going to play out once, he appears. I mean, as you know, we all know, the wheels of justice turn very slowly. And so we could be talking about a trial that happens in a year from now. There's also the possibility, Joy, that I've been hearing, that his defense attorneys could say, look, he's not going to get a fair trial in Manhattan. Nobody likes Donald Trump in this city. We want to move it somewhere else. Or, you know what, we want to delay the trial until after the presidential election. I mean, I gather his defense attorneys will try to throw up a number of objections to the setting, to how it's taking place, even to the timeline as we continue to follow his motorcade heading ever closer to court, Joy.
Yeah, I mean, his lawyer, Joe Tacopino, had mentioned moving the trial from New York City, which is a very liberal city. Most people here, something like 70%, voted not for Donald Trump. But he suggested moving it to Staten Island, to somehow get a fairer trial. Now, we do know that his legal team has hired another attorney, a gentleman called Todd Blanche, who represented Donald Trump's former campaign manager, who was jailed for some time, Paul Manafort, before Donald Trump pardoned him when Trump was president. He's considered a brilliant lawyer, and he will head up the team. But we all know Donald Trump's legal strategy. It's attack, 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 and then delay. So you're right, all of these investigations, this particular one could take months and months, perhaps even years. And of course, we're already in the election cycle. You know, you have Republican rivals who are out there defending Donald Trump instead of trying to take advantage of the situation that he has wounded legally and perhaps even politically. The only person recently who's come out and said that Donald Trump is a sideshow and Republicans should move on is the former governor of Arkansas, Asa Hutchinson, who says that he intends to run for president. Everyone's got their cameras out. I think everyone's moving in to try and get a picture, the picture, that moment when Donald Trump steps into the courtroom. But you know what? They could do it by the side door and we won't see anything.
Yeah, no, good point. And, you know, also the rules have changed. I mean, once this is a criminal case, Joy, could be a gag order. The judge could be very severe in terms of saying to Donald Trump, look, you know, these are things you can and cannot do, things you can and cannot say. No doubt his lawyers are hoping that they won't have to, you know, coach him or tell him not to say certain things. But that's going to be very difficult for a man who has made a career and won the presidency on basically saying whatever came to mind and not adhering to any political norms whatsoever. But now that he's facing criminal charges, perhaps the calculus changes a little bit, Joy. What do you think?
Well, absolutely. I mean, this judge does not take too kindly at being attacked, and certainly the district attorney does not as well. And when we hear from him at the press conference when he discusses the charges, I'm sure he may take a slap back at Donald Trump. But Donald Trump is kind of hard to restrain. I mean, he says what he says, and then he takes it back. He's been talking about these classified documents on Fox News, saying he has a right to take whatever he wants. I mean, what? It's absolutely incredible. I see that I'm losing a lot of the crowd around here. They're all kind of moving in to see if they can get a better shot of that motorcade and the Secret Service. This, Todd, certainly is a spectacle, and it is a moment. You know, there has been some criticism of us, actually, that why are we concentrating on this when there are so many other pressing issues in the United States, like gun control, Nashville students that walked out in protest. At the same time, I don't think this country has ever seen anything like this before. A former president who is indicted and will face criminal charges over hush money payments.
Yeah, our Washington bureau chief, Joy Malbon, in Lower Manhattan. Joy, the motorcade is getting ever closer. I can see they're approaching Lower Manhattan now, so we're going to keep our eye on that where you are. Stand by. We'll get back to you.